Hello everyone, it's Jen. Today I'm making some star-shaped cards. Felt like something a little bit different. So I'm going to be using the stitched stars from Heffy Doodle. The feature for today is the Superstar stamp set by Lawn Fawn. Really sweet stamp set with great sentiments. I'm also bringing in some of the mice from the Dandy Day stamp set. So to get started, I used an 8.5 by 11 sheet of 110-pound cardstock. I left it at 11 inches long and then cut it at 6 inches, and I'm just scoring it at 5.5 inches. So the star shape that I'm using is about 5 3/4 by 5 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut my star shape out with my die. Now I'm making sure to cut that on the folded line. It doesn't really matter where you cut that top, you just want to make sure that some of it overhangs. I chose to have it down a little bit further just to give it extra stability. I also went ahead and cut out some of the stars on the same white cardstock for my front panels that I will adhere to the card bases. So for this card, I'm going to add some clouds to the bottom of our little scene here that we're going to make. I'm just using the Heffy Doodle cloud border dies for this, and I'm going to go ahead and cut these out a couple times using the different borders in the set, and then go ahead and cut those out using the same star die as well. So I already had these backgrounds created in my stash. Now you can see here, these are on 4 1/4 by 5.5 card panels. The galaxy background was easy to cut out because I could just maneuver it anyway, but you can see here with this cloudy one, it wasn't wide enough for me to be able to have those clouds in a horizontal fashion. So I dug through my stash, found another piece of cloudy cardstock that I had already stenciled, and went ahead and cut that out. It doesn't matter that the bottom of the card panels here are cut off because they will be covered up with those cloudy borders that I die cut. Now this blue and white cloud panel will change, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we move on to putting the cards together. So now I'm just going to adhere these background panels to the card bases. And you can see there, making sure that the areas that weren't die cut out are to the bottom of the star so that those cloud borders can cover that. So you can see here, I'm going to start to place the cloud borders onto the card base. I'm just going to go ahead and glue these right down with my liquid glue. You could pop these up for some added dimension if you wanted to. For the star with the galaxy background, I'm actually going to add some vellum behind the layers. So again, I just cut these out of the cloudy border dies, and you can see here I'm just leaving extra room, and I'll trim that up with my scissors once I get that in place. So just playing around here with placement. I love the look that the vellum adds to this card. It just adds another fun layer to our little star-shaped card here. So you just want to make sure when you're cutting off the vellum, don't do what I do. For the next layer, I actually end up cutting the vellum before I lay it down onto the card base, which means that I cut off a portion of it that I didn't want to. So you want to make sure that you're doing it like this example here, where you add the vellum to the card base or the card panel before adding that cut. So here's where I'm going to add that second layer of vellum. I'm going to adhere the white cloudy border onto that vellum, and then I'm going to cut it before I adhere it to the card base, which is where I ran into trouble. Right here when I'm trimming along that cloudy edge, I actually wanted that to stay. But it's okay, it still looks really cute. You can see the vellum to the left-hand side. I'm just gonna trim this up. Here's where I realized I shouldn't have done that, so I'm going to leave that other side, the left-hand side, until I go ahead and adhere this to my card base. And it's really easy to cut that vellum. So moving on, I'm going to add some powder here just to make sure that Nothing sticks to the areas that I don't want it to, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Versamark ink here, and I'm going to add some of the stars to the background. Again, just adding some more visual elements to the panel here. So I'm going to stamp that single stamp a couple times. I added one of the shooting stars to the top center. I'm making sure to have some of the stars go off the card panel itself. And I'm going to use my Wow embossing powder. This is metallic silver sparkle. It's so pretty and glittery. So I'm just going to add that on to my card panel here, making sure that I get all of those stars covered. Now I did have my heat gun started here for a little bit so that I didn't have to spend much time adding heat to the card panel. I was very cognizant of not wanting to warp this. So here we can see these beautiful stars start to glimmer and glitter as they are heated. So pretty when it catches the light. So now we're going to go ahead and create this card. For the first card, I'm going to use this sentiment here to the bottom. I'm just laying it down on the card base for placement. So you're going to notice it's not in perfect placement just yet, but I wanted to make sure that sentiment was going to fit before I added all of my little colored elements here. So this is the little mouse to the left-hand side that comes in the stamp set with the telescope. The other mouse that I'm using is from the Dandy Day stamp set. I'm going to add some foam tape behind the little mouse here, and that will just add some dimensions so that they stick off a little bit from that card panel. So I'm going to have this one to the top of the clouds looking at the stars through the telescope. And then the other little mouse to the bottom right, I'm going to have him holding a star, and he looks like he's kind of blowing a wish. From the Dandy Day stamp set, they have a lot of dandelions. It's a really sweet set, and I will be showing or sharing multiple cards using that stamp set coming up in the next little while as well. And I will color the mice on that video for you so you can see the colors that I use to color them up. So for the sentiment, I'm stamping this out in my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink. And the sentiment will read, "I thank my lucky stars for you." Just using my stamp block here, being really careful to make sure that I get a good impression. And here's where I'm going to add the stars. So I wanted to have 3 of the stars, just carrying through that theme with the star-shaped cards. So like I said, I am going to have this little mouse holding one of the stars. I am going to pop up all 3 of the purple stars on some foam tape as well so that they are at the same height as our little mice are. I love this little one in the bottom corner there, just looking up to the stars and making his or her wish. Oh, for the top stars, I just adhered those down with a liquid adhesive. For the next card, I do pop all of them up on some foam tape. So I'm just trying to figure out where I want placement to be. I don't think it really matters. It looks pretty wherever they are. I just like the pop of color with the purple stars, and I thought it went well with the galaxy background that I created. So now that I have that complete, I can go ahead and add my card panel to my card base. I tried my best not to add the liquid adhesive to the top part of the star. That will be overhanging from the card base. Now, if you didn't want there to be that overhang showing, you could also add a star card panel to the back of the card as well to kind of hide that fold. So here's where I had to bring in a new background. So I'm using a cloudy stencil here, and all the products that I'm using today will be listed with direct links to each product for ease of convenience if you want to see something a little bit closer. But I always say that there's not too much that you can't fix when creating a card, and I tried with that original panel. I messed it up, and so I tried to go over it and fix it, and in this particular case I just ended up making a huge mess of it. So I did go ahead and recreate a new cloudy background, and I really loved the darker teal color. This is Peacock feathers, and I used my Distress Oxide for that. So for this card, I'm going to stamp the sentiment to the top center, and I'm using "There are stars, and then there are superstars." Such a sweet sentiment. And for this card, I'm actually going to use the mice in white, or I originally thought I was going to use them in white. In the end, I thought they blended too well with those clouds, the white panels that I cut out. So I end up switching them out, you'll see here in a second, for light brown mice, and I think that looks a lot better. I really wanted to have the little mom and baby mice on this card, but I just couldn't get them to fit. But you're going to see here, I try really hard to figure out if I can fit them on. So here's where I'm kind of looking and trying to decide which color of mice I like better. And I think the brown stands out a little bit more on this card with that really bright tealy turquoise aqua color. So again, I'm going to pop up the mice here on some foam tape, as well as the 3 stars that I colored to match the ink that I used for my sky. So here I am still trying to use that other little mouse, but it just wasn't going to work for this card. So I'm going to stick with the one that comes in the Superstar stamp set. Again, using 3 of these stars that came in the stamp set. I really love the look that these give, just filling out these star-shaped cards. Once I get them into place, I am going to bring in some star sequins. These are from Trinity Stamps. They're called Cassiopeia. They are no longer available, but Trinity does have some other star confetti that you could use, and you might just have some in your stash anyways. So I'm going to finish off here bringing in my white gel pen to add some highlights. I did use a black glaze pen for their eyes as well. Now, of course, true to me, I got my fingers in the ink from the sentiment, so I just had to clean that up a little bit using my white eraser. And now I'm going to finish the inside of this card. I stamped out "That's You," and I'm using the cluster of 3 stars that comes in the stamp set as well. Just using the Distress Oxide in Peacock feathers for the stars. Now that I have that done, I can go ahead and put my card panel on to the card base. And I think these turned out really fun, something a little bit different than a standard A2 size card. Here's where I'm going to add the little stars here. I already have my glue down for some of them, and that just finishes off the card nicely. So I'm going to show you both of the cards here that I made today. Let me know if you have a favorite out of the 2. I haven't really decided. I really like them both equally, I think. So thanks everyone for joining me. Here's a close-up of each of the cards. I will leave a link here to a couple videos to keep you occupied until I have another new video up for you. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all your comments and love that you show in the description box. I read all your comments and it just brightens my day. So have a fabulous day, everyone, and I will see you really soon in the next video. Bye!